He didn't even get a chance to step out of his truck before the cop rushed toward him, hand already on his holster. "Stop right there," the officer barked. The man froze, confused, still holding the folded funeral program in his hand. Around them, people in black stood near the church entrance, whispering as the officer shoved him back against the door. "You can't be here," the cop snapped. "This is a private funeral. And you look suspicious." The man didn't raise his voice, didn't fight back. He just said quietly, "I'm here to honor someone I served with." But the cop wasn't listening. "Open your jacket," he demanded, gripping his baton tighter. "Now." The man hesitated, glancing toward the casket being carried inside. "Please," he whispered, "not here." The officer yanked the zipper himself. And the second the jacket opened, the entire crowd gasped. Rows and rows of combat medals glimmered across his chest, catching the light like fire. The cop's face went pale. He stumbled back as if he'd just unzipped a secret he wasn't ready for. The air went still, and all anyone could hear was the stunned whisper from an old veteran nearby. "My God, that's not a suspicious man, that's a hero." The cop's hand dropped from his holster so fast it nearly slipped. He stared at the medals: Silver Star, Purple Heart, Distinguished Service Cross, lined perfectly across the man's chest. Wait, you're military," he stuttered, his voice suddenly small. The man didn't answer. He just pulled out the folded funeral program again, the edges worn from his grip, and placed it gently against his heart. People who had been watching from a distance now stepped closer, their eyes wide. A woman whispered, "That's Staff Sergeant Cole, the one they wrote about." Another veteran straightened his posture and saluted him with trembling fingers. The cop swallowed hard, realizing the crowd had turned. "Sir, I didn't know." The man finally spoke, his voice quiet but sharp enough to cut through every murmur. "You didn't ask." He didn't yell. He didn't need to. "You grabbed me in front of the family of a soldier who never made it home, a soldier I carried out of a burning convoy with these hands." The cop's jaw clenched. His face flushed red, half from shame, half from knowing he couldn't undo what everyone had just seen. Funeral guests stared at him with contempt. The man stepped past the officer, slow and steady. "If you're done treating me like a threat," he said, "I'd like to say goodbye to my brother." The cop froze, unable to move, unable to speak, as the decorated soldier walked into the church, medals gleaming like a silent warning he would never forget. The church doors creaked as he stepped inside, and every head turned toward him. Some gasped softly, recognizing the medals, while others simply bowed with quiet respect. The man walked straight down the aisle toward the flag-draped casket, each step heavy, each breath controlled. But the moment he reached the front, his shoulders trembled just once, grief finally breaking through the wall he'd held up outside. He rested his hand on the casket. "I'm here, brother," he whispered. "Just like I promised." Behind him, the same cop who had shoved him moments earlier stood frozen in the doorway, hat in hand, looking like he'd shrunk 2 sizes. A family member shot him a cold glare and muttered, "This is the man you called suspicious." The cop tried to step forward, but an older veteran blocked his path with a single stern look. "Not now," the old man said. "He's saying goodbye." The officer backed away, guilt burning through him as he watched the soldier kneel beside the casket. Then, in a quiet but steady voice that carried across the room, the man said, "He saved my life twice. I'd give him mine, if I could." People wiped their eyes, the weight of his words sinking deep. Outside, the cop stood on the steps, head down, realizing he hadn't just made a mistake, he had disrespected a warrior at his most vulnerable moment. And the worst part was, everyone had seen it. As the soldier rose from beside the casket, the church felt different, heavier, quieter, like everyone was breathing his grief with him. He turned to walk back up the aisle, but halfway through, he stopped. The cop was standing outside the doorway, stiff and pale, as if waiting for a verdict. The man stepped out into the sunlight, medals gleaming across his chest. The cop straightened, trying to speak, but the words tangled in his throat. "Sir, I want to apologize. I didn't mean." "You meant exactly what you did," the soldier replied calmly. No anger. No raised voice. Just truth. "You saw a black man at a funeral and assumed threat before you assumed grief." The cop winced, eyes lowering. People from the service drifted outside, forming a silent circle around them. Some crossed their arms. Others watched with quiet expectation. The soldier continued, I fought in 2 wars. I buried brothers on 3 continents. But nothing hits harder than coming home and getting treated like I don't belong at my own soldier's funeral. A murmur rippled through the crowd. The officer's hands shook. I want to make this right. The soldier stepped closer, his voice dropping. Then listen. Learn. Next time you see someone like me, someone who served, someone who suffered, don't judge the jacket before you know the man. The cop swallowed, nodding slowly, humbled in front of everyone. Then the soldier said something that made the entire crowd go silent. You grabbed me like a suspect. He paused, letting the weight fall. But he pointed to the casket inside, died calling me brother. The cop's eyes filled, the final blow landing harder than any punishment. And for the first time that day, he whispered, I'm sorry, Staff Sergeant. The soldier nodded once, firm and final, before turning back toward the church, leaving the officer standing there, frozen, with the truth carved deep into him. The soldier walked back toward the casket, but before he could step inside again, the funeral commander approached him, a stern older woman in uniform, her silver hair tied neatly, her eyes sharp with respect. Staff Sergeant Cole, she said quietly, the family asked if you would stand with them during the final honors. He nodded, swallowing hard. Of course. As he stepped beside the grieving parents, the church doors opened wider, and the crowd filtered in behind him. Even the cop lingered at the back, standing stiffly, hands clasped, trying to show respect without drawing attention. The commander raised her hand, signaling the honor guard. Rifles lifted. The crisp commands echoed against the church walls. 3 shots cracked through the air outside, each one making the soldier flinch with memories he tried hard to bury. Then came the slow, mournful fold of the American flag. Every crease perfect, every motion honoring the fallen. The folded flag was handed first to the parents, and then, unexpectedly, to the soldier himself. The mother's voice trembled. He wanted you to have it. He told us, you were the reason he survived as long as he did. The man froze, breath catching. He shook his head. Ma'am, I can't. But she pressed the flag into his hands. He said you were his protector. His hero. Silence filled the room. Heavy. Emotional. Unbreakable. Even the officer at the back wiped his eyes, realizing he had nearly dragged this man, this hero, away from a moment that meant more than life itself. The soldier held the flag against his chest, metals shining under the dim church lights, and for the first time all day, his voice cracked as he whispered, rest easy, brother, I'll carry this one for you. The church remained still. Every soul in the room feeling the weight of service, sacrifice, and the painful reminder of how quickly people judged the heroes standing right beside them.